Hello and welcome to Dungeons & Drawgans. Today I have a somewhat different episode for you. I will be painting a few minifigures for an upcoming campaign I will be running, and in the meantime, I've chosen a few funny or interesting stories that you, the fans, have shared with me on Twitter, and I'll be reading them occasionally throughout the video. The music I will be using for this episode was all provided by Twitter user Cream Tiefling. His music is free to use with credit, and I highly encourage you to support him on Patreon. Link will be in the description. This comes from Twitter user @Ariana87. One of my husband's favorite of my character's deeds was during a war I was a druid, and I turned into a falcon flying as high as possible, then soared at top speed toward a war cart full of wizards, turning into a sure bear and crashing into them. I killed every last one. One person in our game actually pulled out a calculator and figured out velocity, weight, and everything, and him and the DM came up with a massive damage that I did. I died, but it was okay because beforehand I had cast an ancient spell that activated upon my death, where I immediately traveled to the nearest animal and basically possessed it till I could find a recently passed body of a humanoid. Started campaign as a tiefling, ended as a half-elf. This next story comes from @OGCaptainMel. One of my best friends, the DM, put a half-magical key in a dungeon. We found it, and went through the teleportation portal to a demigod's demiplane. Another friend was a dick to her, so she kicked us all out, and the portal went from an inviting purple to an opaque green. The friend who was being a dick was determined that he hadn't seen this through, and hurled himself into the portal, which was a disintegration portal. He was holding the key. That key was meant to be a hugely important MacGuffin for the adventure. It would be stolen from us, united with the other half, used to free an evil genie from a 1,000-year binding, and he just obliterated it, along with himself, through sheer bullheaded stubbornness. This comes from @Kata was taken. I hopefully pronounced that correctly. I've only been DMing for 2 months, but my first group convinced the dragon boss of the book to spare them by working under it. It was a totally unexpected way for them to handle it, and I'm honestly still laughing at the persuading the bard had to go through. Next we have @ThirstyBTP. Not D&D, but I had a warlord and his army in a hilltop fort overlooking an enslaved town. The PCs blew the side off the hill due to a miscalculated bomb yield, sneaked into the fort catacombs through the hole, freed the captives, and blew up the fort. They never met the warlord. They did, however, murder the captain of the warlord's bodyguard, mutilate his nephew, and set fire to more than one brothel. Good times. Here we have one from @KyleT Davis. Just last night, I had a great room all set up with a locked path out and walls falling in. I even set a timer so my players had to work in real time. Then the wizard turned into a rust monster and thrashed the iron bars blocking the way. Bryn Iursa says, I had a nice little old lady come out to give the players some directions. One player was suspicious and rolled to intimidate. The end result was she had a heart attack, and the grandsons that came out to avenge her wound up being persuaded that a monster caused it, and not them. Here is a weird one from @10andthensome. The island has risen. The army is on the march and the harbor blockaded, and our heroes adrift in time have discovered a gateway home. And they are now torn between going or following their given destiny of leading the armies to stop the rise of night. And they have a poop room. I of course questioned, poop room? So in the first session, the Druid, who was essentially a complete hermit, was reintroduced to society forcefully and suddenly. The party was describing a home as a base in a town. He didn't quite get it, so they described it and the rooms. He was confused by the bathroom. Next one is from @GideonGarcia. During my college days, I read a book called The Witcher. I then, for a campaign a friend was running at school, made a tiefling paladin named Philo, based on Geralt of Rivia. He was hated because he was tiefling and would be given jobs that were suicide missions. At times when he finished these jobs, he'd get half to a fraction of what was promised. This transferred over to the party he was joining, and was this way until he became the champion of Kronos. @SlingerSci19 says, So this one time, I was trying to set up an ambush against my players. The king's royal advisor was a super evil sorcerer, and working with the cult the party had been tracking down. I dropped hints that the sorcerer could be found with only a few guards after a Senate hearing, hoping they'd take the bait and try to corner him. And what does my party do? They storm the Senate hearing, of course, accuse the advisor of conspiring with the cult. But they had almost no evidence. He didn't comply, so the party attacked him. I had the royal guards arrest everyone and throw them all in prison. I took a week off the game and planned an elaborate prison for them to break out of, which they actually did rather successfully. Here's one of my favorite from @NotASpaceLizard. My first time DMing, the party was supposed to clear the rats from the basement, but instead, they made friends with the rats, and arranged with the bookstore owner for them to stay. The rats hired the party to invade Phandalin in order to establish a rat humanoid utopia. The peacekeepers they kicked out didn't like that. It was eventually revealed that they were plotting to take over the world, and the campaign was all about thwarting their evil plan. Finally, from @TheKevAndrew. My first character I ever made, a half-elf rogue cardslinger, one time activated a trap after all party members got past it, just to see what it did, and it turned out to begin the collapse of the entire dungeon, and we lost all the loot we were going to get, all for one tripwire. Alright, that's all I have for today. If you'd like some of your content featured in the future, please message me on Twitter. Thanks for watching this episode of Dungeons & Drawgans. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe for more. Feel free to comment your own D&D stories down below. And come follow my Twitter, @DungeonsAndDraw, where I give updates, interact with fans, and even let you vote on what story I tell next.